Hi, everyone, and welcome to Stage Free. I'm so excited that you're here. This podcast is where we have these real conversations about what happens after diagnosis, because we all know survivorship is a lot more than just surviving. It's about living. I'm your host, Loriana Hernandez-Aldama. I'm a two-time cancer survivor, a journalist, a global advocate, also the host of Stage Free and the founder of our nonprofit called ArmorUp for Life. Today's episode is very special because it is part of a series leading up to our Real Talk webinar on July 22nd, hosted by ArmorUp for Life in partnership with breastcancer.org. And this is free. And it is all about mental health and breast cancer. So if you've ever thought to yourself, it's hard, but I'm not supposed to talk about it, and you have this stigma in your head, it is okay not to be okay, and we're talking about it. So register now. We will have the link in our show notes. But I want to introduce you to an amazing woman I just met, and I am just in awe of the work she's doing, who's not just surviving, she is transforming the breast cancer space. Tiah Tomlin-Harris. Diagnosed with triple negative cancer back in 2015, Tiah turned her pain into purpose. She co-founded My Style Matters, a nonprofit in Atlanta. I'm right here in Atlanta too, focused on cancer support, health equity, and generational health, especially in Black communities. She's led initiatives, published research, testified on Capitol Hill, earned awards like the Point of Light Award and the Diamond of Hope from the Atlanta Braves. And she also has a sisterhood we will talk more about when we get into this that you can join. She is the heartbeat as well, to add one more thing of the amazing work she's doing for an amazing virtual support group at breastcancer.org, helping women to feel seen, heard, and never alone. Tiah, welcome. And I'm sorry for that long intro, but you have so many accolades and things that you're doing that it was just an honor to read it all, and you should be proud of everything you're doing. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here and sharing my story.
I am excited. And again, in all of the work you're doing, I want to start with your diagnosis. We all have that moment. For me, it was in 2014 when my world turned upside down. Your world turned upside down in 2015 with triple negative breast cancer. That alone can feel like the floor just falling out from under you. So tell me about that diagnosis and how it was early on.
Yeah, when I think about the diagnosis, I actually want to go before the diagnosis. In 2014, I was working, climbing the corporate ladder. And at that time, I was really feeling like something in my life was missing, and I couldn't figure it out. I was single, no kids, and like I said, really working hard. And I had a conversation with a cousin who, both he and his wife, they work for Fortune 500 companies. They have two daughters, and they're very involved in their daughters' lives. And I kept saying, what am I missing? I feel like I'm going to work, bringing work home, continuously doing this work, and paying bills and then doing it all over again. And I just felt like something was missing. And I said, how do you do this thing called work-life balance? Because I felt like I didn't have balance. And he answered my question with a question. And he said, what would they say at your funeral?
Ooh,
and that really, yes, that really, startled me. It did something to me. And I said, well, first, what do you mean by that? He said, I don't want you to answer it right now, but I want you to think about it. What would they say at your funeral? And I started to think about it, and I said, what would they say at my funeral? He said, you're a workaholic. You just work. You love what you do. You're passionate about what you do, but whose life are you reaching? Who are you touching? And in that moment, I realized I was just existing. I wasn't living. And so at the top of 2015, I made a decision to live. And, like Maxine Waters says, I'm going to buy back my time. And I start traveling and really just enjoying life. But even in enjoying life, I wasn't living life with purpose. And so in 2015, in June, I got diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer, and I was 38 years old. So I was young, didn't have a family history of breast cancer. And when I heard those words, it's cancer, it was devastating. My life flashed before my eyes. I started to think, am I going to survive? How am I going to take care of myself? Who's going to want me? What am I going to do and say to my family? Because prior to me being diagnosed back in 2011, I lost my grandfather, buried him on a Monday. My father had a major stroke on that Saturday. He was supposed to start a brand new job on the following Monday. And my brother, a few months later, my brother was diagnosed with stage 4 testicular cancer. My mother had a heart attack. I lost my auntie to a motorcycle accident. And so my family had gone through a lot of tragedy. That was in 2011. And so now, we're getting to a better place here in 2015, but now I have to break this news to my family. And it was just devastating. And I was so afraid and fearful and didn't even know that there was such a thing called triple negative breast cancer. I just knew it was breast cancer. I didn't know much about it. And so in that moment, again, hearing those words, it just broke me. It really, really broke me.
Well, I want to highlight something that you pointed out that it seems to be a common denominator with a lot of people I talk to. And your story hit me to the core because I was at a moment of peak of my career. I was like a hamster on a wheel, just working to live, not living. I was just going and going and going, just climbing the ladder, living the dream as a news anchor, and thought, well, nothing's going to happen to me, but I didn't have my purpose. And so a lot of times people go through that moment and then they're diagnosed and then you find your purpose. But the other thing you pointed out is you had had so much trauma and tragedy and stress years before, and that is emotionally toxic on you. I mean, not that you brought it upon yourself, but that also can lay the foundation for illness, as we know, because stress causes inflammation. Inflammation is a fertilizer for cancer. And a lot of doctors are saying, look back at what happened a few years before your diagnosis. Yeah. So that must have just, what went through your mind looking back at like, wow.
That's a great question, because that was something, and I think all survivors ask, why me, right? How did this happen and why me? And you start to really reflect on your life. What have I gone through? What are the experiences that I've had? Did I bring this upon myself? You really start to analyze everything and reflect and ask those questions. And I started to think about the trauma that I had experienced through, everything that was going on with my family. And on top of that, just work, the stress of work and things that I was dealing with, even at a company that I worked with prior to the employer that I was working with when I got diagnosed. Just so many things you had gone through, and you start to think about stress and how stress can lead to, like you said, inflammation and all of these other things and suppressing your immune system. And that can cause, you to be more vulnerable to disease, chronic illness, cancer. You don't want to ever say, I did this, right? And I caused my cancer, but you have to understand the risk factors. And I think when you're going through things in life, you don't think about those things. You don't think about stress and how it impacts your health. You just, you're taught to be resilient and to push through it. And that's what I did. I just tried to push through it as best as I knew how. But on the inside, I was breaking down.
I think, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, but there is a quote that says, the best math you can ever do is calculating the cost of your decisions today for tomorrow. And I look back and I had so many regrets of how I lived my life. And now, while in survivorship, while I say broken and alive, I am living my purpose, and it's changed the lens. But it launched me into a new way to help people. And so tell me what you did with those, like through your journey as you started to navigate it, and then the gaps in your support emotionally, mentally, culturally, you discovered that launched you not into just taking care of yourself, but helping others.
Well, when I was going through my journey, of course, being young, I didn't see many women that looked like me, both in age and, being a woman of color, being a Black woman. And the company that I was working for at the time was actually undergoing a merger. And so we know with mergers come layoffs. And so I was very afraid to be vocal about what I was going through. And yes, I live in Atlanta, but I'm not from here. So it wasn't like I had a huge support system, not having family here. I'm the bird that left the nest, if you will. And so when you think about, as I was trying to navigate my journey, my mom came down to caregive for me. But it was still a challenge, after all of what my family had gone through and was still recovering and trying to bounce back. I didn't want to put my stresses and my concerns and emotions on my mom because, going through cancer is very heavy. And especially if you're sitting on the sideline as a caregiver, you're feeling helpless. So when I was going through, I started to go to support groups, but like I said, I didn't see anyone that looked like me. And the women would try to assist me. It was older white women, and they would try to help me, but they didn't have the same shared experiences. And it wasn't that, they couldn't provide me with support in terms of just kind of giving me their experiences, but it just wasn't the same. Of course, the questions that I had, they just couldn't simply answer. What is it like for a Black woman? Is it different? Is it different for a young woman? What does this look like? Will I ever have kids? What does it look like in terms of, possibly down the road getting married? All of these questions that I had, and coupled that with triple negative breast cancer, and they just couldn't answer it. And so as I was navigating, I felt like I was navigating in silence. And I said, I see us in the infusion center, but where are we in terms of true connection? And so God put it on my heart to start a sisterhood. And I started, my Breast Years Ahead was our sisterhood that I first started, and it was for women who were in the local area. I wanted to start it nationally, but what I recognized is I was in groups and things like that on Facebook, and the connection just wasn't there. The personal touch wasn't there. And so I started the group, and I said, we're all on social media, right? Let's start there and start building those connections. And so not only do the women connect online, but they also connect offline. And it's building a community of support. And so while I was helping other people, I was also being blessed and being helped as well. And I think back, when I first heard the words as cancer, one of my prayers to God was, God, you see me through this. I'm going to help as many women as I can. And thank God he saw me through it. And here I am supporting as many women as I can. And so when I got the diagnosis and heard, it's and I like to say cancer and not cancer.
That's right.
So when I heard those words, for me, it was, now I've discovered purpose. So I'm living life on purpose now.
On purpose. And we have to go through that. And sometimes it's, when you said that you had this conversation with God, I did the same thing. And I'm like, look, if I live, I will serve. Like, I have a platform, I'm a journalist, and I will use my voice to help others, because I was struggling with the emotional trauma of, how did this happen to me? What kind of support system? Being Latina, I felt like there was not enough support. I kept hearing there's no match for me in the clinical trials and not enough Latinos in the clinical trials. And I thought, I have to do something. And I think it's things like that, that not everyone has to launch a nonprofit and do the work that we do. But for us, that was how we mentally coped.
Yeah.
Now, I want to go to, because there's so much I want to highlight about the work that you just shared. With your sisterhood, My Breast Years Ahead, tie this in for our webinar and why it's so important to talk about mental health. And the webinar is called, as you know, It's Okay Not to Be Okay. What were you finding with the sisterhood when you read the posts on social media, when you hear them and say, this is affecting my marriage, this is affecting my self-esteem, just you're looking at your body, feeling differently, intimacy. There's so many changes that mentally it does affect you, and it's okay to ask for help.
It's important, and I love the phrase, it's okay to not be okay, because so many of us here, fight like a girl, you're strong, you got this, all of these things that we hear, this cliche. But the reality is a lot of us are not okay. Hearing the words it's cancer, who's okay with hearing that? And so there's a lot of things that go through our minds. There's a lot of concerns. Of course, we know that people lose friends. They run into challenges with family members, loved ones. It's just, going through cancer is not easy, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all the above. And so when I founded the Sisterhood, what was important for me is to build community, for women to know, one, it's okay not to be okay. But while you're not okay, know that you have a sisterhood that can lift your arms up when you're too weak to lift them up yourself. And so this is really what sisterhood is all about, connecting with community, knowing that others are going through the same thing that you're going through, and you're not alone going through this.
And it's okay to ask for help. I say you have to build a pit crew and surround yourself, because you talked about losing friends. Like, we talk about cancer survivors are often ghosted by some of the people who are close to them. And it's shocking to other people when they hear that, but it happens. And mentally, that's just another layer that takes a toll on you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because today I was at one of the hospitals. We do pop-ups at the hospital. And while I was there, one woman said, I am so glad that I connected with you because I'm here alone. I don't have family here. All of my family is several hours away, and I'm fighting this all by myself, and I'm fighting in silence. And I said, you don't have to fight in silence. You have a community of women that's here to support you, that we've gone through it. And not only have we gone through it, we know what you need. We know how to show up for you. We know how to support you, help you advocate for yourself, teaching you how to ask the right questions. If you just need someone to just sit and listen, be a listening ear, we're here for you. If you need a meal or what have you, we're here for you to support you and lift you up. And that's one thing I will say after being diagnosed with breast cancer. Again, no one wants to be in this club, this sisterhood,
Right.
being diagnosed, or as people would say, sorority. But once you get into it, you meet beautiful women that become long life friends.
And they truly understand and they get you because they've walked that path. And we all walk some different paths and face different struggles along the way. But I have let go and released the stress of being upset with someone who's never had cancer, who does not understand me, doesn't understand my PTSD or the mental trauma, or they think you're okay just because the surgery's over and the chemo's over. And you're like, there is a whole nother battle. But there is something to say about building community. And so I say to anybody who's struggling right now, who is mentally down, who feels like, this is too much for me right now, that it's okay not to be okay. But the best thing you can do is find a sisterhood for you. And maybe it is My Breast Years Ahead, whatever that community, or on social media, to wave the flag and ask for help so they can be your pit crew. Because it's great to see on social media people ask, like, what do I do? I'm having intimacy issues, or what do I do? I've lost friends, or we can't pay our bills. And we all direct each other, like, here's another nonprofit, here's what you can do.
Even with that, the self-advocacy piece, because some of us have never encountered cancer, don't know anyone who's encountered this. And so sometimes when you're diagnosed with this disease, you find people that are lost. They don't know where to turn. And so just thinking about that, being able to hear other people's experiences. I remember when I was having some challenges with the side effects. And when I talked to the doctor, they kind of brushed me off. And so that put fear in me, because if they couldn't answer and they kind of brushed me off, I'm like, is this normal, what I'm going through? And so I had a community to turn to and ask, hey, are you all experiencing the same thing? Because if they weren't, then of course the anxiety is high, right? But
Right.
if they're saying, yes, I have experienced this, then it eases some of that concern, or ease some of that, frustration or fear that you may have, because this is normal. Other people are going through
Right.
this as well.
And I will say this, not to get too technical, but it's called patient-reported outcomes, our interpretation of patients of what a drug may do to us from a side effect. And that is not always on the label. So if you have a side effect you're experiencing, or you don't feel a certain way, and your doctor, him or her, may say, oh, we don't have that down as a common side effect. And I'm like, listen, I'm going to go to my Facebook page and I see weight gain, weight gain, weight gain. It is a side effect. After I see like 100 people have the same thing, I'm like, I'm just going to release it to God, because I know it's a side effect.
Yeah.
But it does validate you and make you feel better. And I think that's what's so important is nobody wants to be in this club. We don't want to be in any club, but the fact that we can help one another. What pains me sometimes is hearing women who may need to take these aromatase inhibitors. And yes, there are a lot of side effects, but we know there's side effects, and some of them could be an intimacy side effect or whatever it is. And they don't want to take it because they don't want to impact their marriage or impact relationships. And it affects adherence. It affects you staying on your treatment. So I feel like we need to rally around each other and say, we're here. We'll catch you. We're here to support you. We cry too. There's so much power in support groups. So I want to back up because, again, I told you, having been on TV, I can talk forever because I love everything that you're doing. Let's talk about the support groups first, that you are leading a virtual support group with breastcancer.org, and your nonprofit is My Style Matters.
Yes.
And what are you hearing for how transformative just an online support group can be? And then I want to go delve into what you're doing directly with your nonprofit.
Yeah, online support groups, it is really helping people. They're building community and not only just being a part of the online support group, but even offline. Some of these women are connecting offline. I think the online is important because it allows you to reach so many people in so many different areas that don't have these services or don't have support programs. And they're feeling like they're battling alone, especially in those rural areas where, the resources are limited or programs are limited. And so having this, opportunity for many survivors, they're able to come together, and we see the same women, join time and time again because they're finding connection. And some of the women even after their journey, they're like, I don't want to, walk away from it. Can I still be a part of this online community because it's really helping me cope? And of course, there's fears even, after you're done with treatment, there's still fears of a recurrence of breast cancer. And so being able to create those spaces for women to have a place to go, to just talk, to just release, and to deal with any kind of long-term effects that they may experience. They know that they have a place they can always lean on and go back to receive the support that they need.
And it's so important because it is not over after the last drip of chemo. There is a new battle. I mean, survivorship starts the day of diagnosis. You are a survivor from that day forward. But that second phase of survivorship, when you need a survivorship care plan, you need to stay on top of things, of what tests you need now that you've had chemo and radiation, what are the risks you face, how often do you need to be there? And then how do you navigate the cost of all that, the financial, I call it just the collateral damage, the whole roller coaster of that. And we can all support each other and direct each other to other nonprofits or other support centers. And so really adding on to what you're saying is, to anyone listening and watching, if you are at a cancer center that does not have a survivorship program or community, any kind of support group, first ask and see if there is one. And then if there isn't, go online. And if there is, you can still go online, but know that you should never have to walk this journey alone. And there are thousands, if not millions of women here ready to just with open arms to embrace you and help each other. Okay, so I want to go back to your nonprofit, My Style Matters, because while you are very clear, hey, you may not have had depression or PTSD like I have, but countless other women have, you still have gone through, it still affects you mentally, and it launched you into this nonprofit. And tell me about all the amazing services and things that you offer to people in the community. And I know it's health related, and I love it because I'm a former fitness and medical reporter. And I say to people, it's so important to prioritize your health, because when you prioritize your health, you can reduce your stress and reduce your risk of recurrence. And that too helps your mental health, because some of the medicine we're on can make you crazy. I get it. So tell me all these wonderful things you offer. I can't wait to share it with everyone.
Yes, so thank you. So My Style Matters, we provide support to women affected by breast cancer. And so, how we come to market, we really want to help women improve their health outcomes and their overall well-being. And we do that through what we call HER support. And so HER support, the acronym for HER, stands for Healthy Living Experiences, Education, Resources, and Support. And so under each one of those letters, the HER and the S for support, we have different programs. And so we have things like our HER support program, which is a 12-week program where we're teaching people about mindfulness, nutrition, physical activity, eliminating toxins, reducing exposures. They have access to 6 weeks of fresh, affordable produce that's delivered to their homes. They get a non-toxic care kit. And at the end of the program, we bring them all together for a day retreat where they're taking what they've learned and putting it into action. In this program, they're also learning about self-advocacy. So we're talking about the disease, teaching them how to advocate for themselves, the right questions to ask, looking for clinical trials if they need clinical trials, and those types of things that we talk about in the program. And they have an opportunity to come back and be a mentor for the next cohort. So we bring in a small cohort for this program. We also have our Food for Life program, which is a plant-based nutrition program. We have a Breast Health Matters program where we're educating teen girls and women about breast health. We also have our Safe for Black Beauty, where we're educating women about the harmful chemicals that are found in our hair care products, skin care products, makeup, and the like that are putting us at risk for not just breast cancer, but so many other health conditions. We also have our support groups. So we have one for just any woman who's been affected by not just breast cancer, but it's a community of support for women who are living with cancer, because how we see it is, even though it may be lung cancer, it may be uterine cancer, it may be ovarian cancer, or what have you, at the end of it all, there's an underline that we're all experiencing some of the same things in terms of the emotions, in terms of the need for support. And so My Breast Years Ahead is open for any woman in the greater Atlanta area and beyond who just are looking for community and want to be supported. We also have our Black Girl Meta Tribe, which is intended for Black women because we know the disparities. We know the statistics around Black women, but this is specifically for Black women living with metastatic breast cancer, Black and brown women. We found that there was a gap here in Atlanta, Georgia, that there was no support specifically for Black and brown women living with metastatic breast cancer. And so we wanted to be able to provide that support to them so they can be able to share resources, because life living with metastatic breast cancer is definitely different than those who are living with early stage breast cancer.
Yes. Yeah, I'm just thinking of this list. We have to make a list of all of this and put it in our show notes for everyone, because you're offering so much. And again, I say to anyone who thinks like, oh, okay, the food, this whole topic of our podcast is about mental health. And yes, mental health ties into this great work that you're doing, because just when you mentioned about mindfulness, I recently partnered with some researchers at Rice University, and they were studying the impact of stress and cancer. And they're studying patients, survivors in therapeutic yoga, and testing their cortisol levels and seeing that when their cortisol levels are lower, they reduce the levels of stress, reduce the levels of inflammation, and then what they're looking at is how much it can reduce the risk of recurrence. And so mindfulness does tie into mental health, especially some of us are taking medications that, remove all of our hormones, and that is a struggle emotionally as well. So I love the work that you're doing, and you're saying this is available to women in the greater Atlanta area.
Yes, so we say the greater Atlanta area and beyond, because we do have opportunities for people to participate virtually. For example, we launched a program called Walk It Out Wednesday. So we say, come learn and burn with us. It's a 30-minute walk where you're being educated. We bring on guest speakers, and you're just walking wherever you are. You join in on our Zoom, and you tune in and listen to a guest speaker, and you're able to ask questions. So instead of us just sitting and,
Right.
not moving our bodies, which a lot of us have become more, sedentary since COVID, we're like, let's get up and let's listen, let's learn, let's be educated for 30 minutes, but you're moving your body at the same time. So we're taking action while we're actually, bringing awareness as well.
And I love that, because we need to be moving. If we weren't doing this podcast, sometimes on calls, I'm sitting here lifting some weights behind my desk. I want to talk about the concrete coping tools. And it seems that you found yours that for me, it helps me cope when I help others cope. Is that how you've helped yourself from a mental health standpoint? And what were those for you? It's just launching launching everything you've done.
I would say first, even before the nonprofit, prayer. Tapping into my spirituality, just really meditating in prayer has really helped me to ground me, because again, life is so uncertain, and I've battled this disease twice. And so, hearing those words all over again was, once again, devastating. So prayer has really helped me to cope, and just having faith and believing, and also watching the words that I'm saying, trying to be more positive in my words and my outlook than being more on the negative side. Then the second thing I would say is helping others. As much as people say, Tiah, you've really blessed me, actually, they don't realize they're blessing me. And so it really, it has really helped me to cope. And I'll tell anyone, like you said earlier, you don't have to have a nonprofit to do this work. right? To really be blessed in the way that supporting other people who are going through really impacts you. You can team up with nonprofits. I think there's a lot of nonprofits that are out here, but I think we just need more support, people to, partner with us to help us do this work. And it's a huge blessing to us all. And not only are we supporting people who are navigating cancer, we also support people who have not heard those words as cancer, because we want them to lower their risk of cancer knocking at their doors.
Especially when we're talking in the brown and Black communities where we know we have the risk and they might be higher. So let's get people involved now and start learning how they can be proactive. And that's
Absolutely.
Like talking about healthy prehabilitation, as I say, preparing yourself for illness, because if it's going to happen, you want to show up as fit as you can. So you present well and you're a better position to prevail. There is a lot. And I love that you offer that because it's important. And I like what you said about you don't have to have a nonprofit to help people. If you are going through some trying times right now, from a mental health standpoint, find somebody who could pair you with someone else who's gone through it. Because I guarantee you, they'll be able to say, oh, I reached out, let's say, to the Pink Fund, which is another great nonprofit, for financial aid assistance if you qualify, or reach out to this group, or just talk to somebody else who's been through it, and they might tell you their strategies. So number one, it's okay not to be okay, because I think none of us are okay when we finish. You kind of look back and say, what the heck happened? And then two, raise the flag, ask for help, build a pit crew. And it seems like you've built several pit crews for people. Is there anything else you want to add before we really promote more of the webinar, what to expect?
Yeah, one thing I do want to say, we were talking about getting involved. And sometimes you have women who don't want anything to do with breast cancer. They're like, I don't want anything to do with it. I'm done with this. I'm ready to walk away. And what we say is you don't have to work with other people that are fighting cancer. There's other things that you can do. You can work with kids. You can work with, just community members who have never been diagnosed with breast cancer. There are things that you can do to help you continue to cope. Because I think sometimes I remember one of the young ladies when I first got diagnosed, she was the first person that I met when I went to orientation at the infusion center. And she said to me, Tiah, I love you. You're a great person. But unfortunately, I really can't stay connected to you because you remind me of cancer. And I am scared out of my mind that this thing could come back. And I told her, I said, I really understand. I truly understand. But find a community. Could be separate from cancer that you can plug into that can continue to support. Because if you do happen to get diagnosed again or what have you, you still have a community of women that are rallying around you and supporting you that may have not had cancer.
Right. Because like in your case, we didn't touch on this, but it did come back. Mm-hmm. And like for me, I had leukemia and then they couldn't get it under control. Then I had a bone marrow transplant and then I got breast cancer. And thankfully I did start my nonprofit, but I surrounded myself with people who kept me vigilant and reminded me to be on surveillance. And that alone helped me stay on top of things and catch things early. So I get it. It's so, my sister's like that too. She's like, oh, I'm so tired of hearing about the C word around you. But for me, it's empowerment and knowledge is power. Like you don't have to talk about it all day. But if you do stay connected with somebody who can say, hey, did you get your follow-up scans? Did you get that ultrasound? Or how are you doing? Because it's, the meal train goes away and this goes away. And then you're left thinking, what happened? Yeah. So I'm so glad you brought that up because it's okay not to be okay. And it's okay to be like, I don't want to talk to you people. Yeah. But find somebody you could talk to privately so you can stay on top of prioritizing your own well-being, finding out what's not worth your stress, reducing the stress in your life, making decisions to step away from toxic situations, toxic relationships, eating healthy, and really setting yourself up for success because it is an uphill battle in survivorship and you will face more challenges. Your body's different, but be prepared. And the best thing you can do, preparation is like my middle name, best thing you can do is prepare for whatever challenge. So I love that you brought that up. It's so important. On July 22nd, we are inviting our community, including Tiah, into the space of realness for our real talk. It's not a panel of perfection. It's a place to say, I'm tired, I'm scared, I'm trying, I'm over this. But let's talk about what we're most excited about the webinar. What do you hope sticks with people who join us?
What I hope that sticks with people that's going to join us. It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
I think that's the important thing, and to be able to take off our mask. You know, too many times we hear women are putting on a mask and they're trying to navigate this thing, but they're suffering in silence. And so we really want them to know, again, there's community. There's community. BCO has community. My Style Matters has community. So many places have community. And even if you have community at your cancer center, it's so important to still connect with other communities because you're going to learn so much more. And so it is definitely okay to not be okay. But again, you have a sisterhood here to hold you, hold you up when you're in your most vulnerable and challenging moment.
And you know what I find so ironic while we're talking about the storms that come in our lives? While we're talking, for anyone listening, if you hear the thunder and the lightning, there is a major storm going over my head, over my house.
Yeah.
And I just want to remind you, when this storm passes, the skies will clear and it will be okay. And it's just ironic. I'm only saying to myself, why is there so much of a storm as we talk about the storms? But it will, the skies will clear. You will find your people. I would say find your people, find your place, find your purpose, and that will help you get through things. It's not going to take it away, but it will help you cope and navigate. So Tiah, you are phenomenal. I feel blessed that we met, and I can't wait. Hopefully we can partner and do some things together. Thank you for your honesty, your advocacy, the light that you give to so many. You remind us that mental health is survivorship and that showing up vulnerable does not make us weak. It makes us all human. So you're phenomenal. And to our listeners, please join us. We will have the registration link. Tiah and I will also be sharing it online on social media. Join us for the free Real Talk webinar on July 22nd. It's at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You'll walk away with tools and hope and a reminder that you're not alone. We will have the link in the show notes. And look, if it's not you that could benefit, maybe, like if you're like, I don't want to talk about this, share it with somebody, because 1 in 8 women are affected by breast cancer. And then you have the caregivers and the family members. Share it so we can help others. And don't forget, every survivor, including you, has a story and it deserves to be told. So until next time, I'm Loriana, and thank you for joining Stage Free. Don't forget to join ArmorUp for Life and breastcancer.org for a Real Talk webinar. It's okay not to be okay. July 22nd at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It is all about mental health after a breast cancer diagnosis. So no matter where you are in your journey, we hope to see you. Check out our show notes for the registration link.